Hey, good morning. It's Sabine. It's April 24th, Sunday, and I'm really looking forward to show you the new update in the article. It's entitled A Trumpeter Swan in Aries Throne Room, and it builds on the story we relayed last time on the sign of Jonah, comet pan stars as a trumpet, both a silver trumpet as well as a ram's horn blowing from underneath the sea monster into the throne room and then toward the Pleiades. The receiving end of the trumpet is the congregated group of believers in the Pleiades as well as the Hyades in Taurus. And today I'm going to make a transition to the heavenly alignments the coming week. And I see a beautiful correlation between the opening scene of Revelation 4, when John is taken to the throne room after these things made at Tauda, and is shown what will happen in the last days. And if we take a look at what the heavens are declaring, I also see a connection to what that little Swedish boy said about a gathering of believers on Friday at a mountain in Egypt, we understand to be Giza. And on that location, which is reflected in the Northern Cross, flanking the three pyramids, and the central pyramid, the Khafre pyramid, is the one that Swedish boy drew. And right in alignment with that central pyramid is the Sphinx, which now looks as a body of a lion and a face of a man. But the research I have looked into shows that it used to be a lion. So we're going to see parallels between the fulfillment of Genesis 49:10 as well. So both the Swedish boy in his vision as well as Genesis 49:10 point to the gathering of believers unto Shiloh. And remember that in Shiloh, Israel, the tabernacle was pitched in David's time, but prior to the Exodus, the Giza pyramid, the Khufu pyramid, the bridal pyramid was the Lord's dwelling place. So on the Giza plateau, we have that representation of the great lion, the Sphinx, and I see a connection to the fulfillment of Genesis 49:10. A trumpeter swan in Aries' throne room. A picture of John falling to his face the moment he sees the Lord in the throne room. Note how in Revelation 4:1 John sees a door opened in heaven in parallel with the active Lyrid meteor shower. So the constellation Lyra, the harp, David's harp, is sparkling this week. We know that David is a type of the heavenly key holder, and in addition to that, he played his harp at 444 hertz, the triple delta or triple door. So I understand Lyra being sparkled now by the Lord is pointing to the door next to the cross, because Lyra is flanking the northern cross. And we know that Jesus on the cross and his finished work there reopened our door to heaven. And as the harp is now playing, to us, I believe it is also a reflection of the dispelling of darkness. Remember when David played unto Saul, who would become his archenemy, he was actually ministering to him and dispelling the darkness that had beset upon Saul. So John then proceeds to hear a trumpet voice in that throne room. And to me, that resonates with the swan comet trumpeting from the throne room toward the gathered believers in Taurus, which resides in Aries from April 26th to 30th. So that is the time frame that the swan comet, or technically C 2021/03 pan stars, difficult to remember. And not so, how do you say that? It's difficult to get a picture in your mind when these names are so abstract. So the Swan Comet is in the throne room, April 26 to 30. John sees the Lamb as it was slain. And if we look at the heavens right now, we see that the sun is lighting up the Lamb constellation from below. And that to me is the reflection of the Lamb being both radiant but also spotless. So there's going to be an extensive slideshow below. And first, I'll give you the description of what I understand we're going to see in the heavens this week, converging toward Friday and Saturday. And it is also, I believe, the final call to the believers congregated in the Pleiades who have not yet woken up, the final call that the bridegroom is coming. Note in the slideshow below that the sun is indeed in Aries during the comet's presence there. And in addition to comet Swan, the sun shines on the face of the Lamb below the head stars. The head stars of Aries are called Sheraton and Amal, and they point to the Lord's wounding. So that corresponds with what John describes as the lamb that has been slain on our behalf. Just like during the Lord's crucifixion, we shared prior that the sun was in Aries during the Exodus as well as during the crucifixion. And now it is flanked by two main witnesses, both Uranus and Mercury. The more steadfast one, Uranus, which is long present in the throne room, is like a blue-green jasper stone, also mentioned by John in Revelation 4, while the more rapidly traversing Mercury has sardine stone-like features. Another stone that John refers to. Mercury reaches its half phase on April 25th. That is called at dichotomy, and that word in the root wording implies a division. And what is interesting is that the call to the virgins to ready themselves because the bridegroom is coming is found in Matthew 25. So as Mercury reaches its half phase, it departs the throne room, enters into Taurus, the bull. And as Mercury departs, Comet Swan enters Aries, the throne room. Meanwhile, the moon bride is conjuncting with Saturn, a type of Satan and Kronos, the pagan god of time, on April 24th in Capricorn. And that happens at the tail star of the goat, the fish portion of the atonement goat. And that announces the coming sacrifice. Then the moon traverses and conjuncts with Mars on the 26th. Mars is associated with war, but also with the archangel Michael standing up. Then the moon conjuncts with Venus, the beloved, in the constellation Pisces, and then with the king planet Jupiter, also in Pisces. Both Jupiter and Venus are now clustered together at the head portion of the trodden down, the horizontal fish, and they are about to conjunct. So the trodden down fish is the symbol of the believers which have been sent out and whose natural strength has become low, just like the Philadelphian believers in the letters in the book of Revelation 1 to 3. And then in the morning of April 27th, we can see how the beloved Venus conjuncts with Neptune, the planet denoting the trident associated with the beast from the sea. Also, the first beast of Revelation we have identified previously as being Barack Obama. And previously, as we were decoding the enemy signaling in the iPad goat, the apple drops seen at the foot of Obama happens at the constellation Pisces and Cetus. So this day has also been alluded to by the elite as their quote unquote Invictus Boom Day, the uh, wink and a nod to April 27th as the day they would quote unquote bring it. So after the moon's divine processional visitations with that string of pearly planets, she will hide in the sun's rays and enters her monthly 3 days of darkness in Cetus, a foreshadowing of the sign of Jonah, which is amplified by the comet Swan doing that same trumpeting from Cetus and then onwards to Aries and Taurus the bull. So the moon reaches her closest point to the groom, which is called at perihelion, and she does so exactly in line with the winged star of the horse Pegasus on April 28th at dusk. And that winged horse is always just patiently waiting the call to lift up the once chained Princess Andromeda, which is connected to the winged horse, and fly her into the heavenly throne room. In the constellation Taurus, we can then see how Mercury nears the believers gathered in the Pleiades, the seven candlesticks in Revelation 1 to 3, but also in Revelation 4, while climbing to its peak altitude. So, what is interesting is first, John sees the candlesticks in the hand of the Lord, and if you look over the right shoulder of Aries, you can indeed see the Pleiades from the position of the Lamb in the constellation Taurus, but by Revelation 4, the candlesticks are in the throne room. And to me, this strengthens the picture that Revelation 4:1 is the first representation of the bridal departure. So in the constellation Taurus, we see how Mercury nears the believers gathered in the Pleiades seven candlesticks while climbing to its peak altitude. And on April 29th, Mercury reaches the highest point in the sky as visible from Jerusalem to stress, I believe, the noticeability of his call to spiritually ready ourselves, even warning the believers in the churches who are still wayward and sleeping. And this, of course, happens against that backdrop of that mighty bull, which as a whole represents the Lord coming down to both rescue and judge. And as we shared last time, the combination of rescue and judgment fits exactly within the current time frame on the Essene calendar, because last Friday was the start of the March on Jericho. That march lasted for 7 days, and that means at the end of the coming week, we will commemorate the fall of the walls of Jericho, the rescue of Rahab and her household, who have developed enduring faith and shown their loyalty to the God of the Israelites, but also they were ministering to the spies when they were there before Passover. So the rescue of Rahab and her household has been initiated before Passover and is concluded at the fall of Jericho. And last time we also brought the verses of 1 Thessalonians 4:16 and 17. The Lord coming down and descending with a shout, the voice of the archangels, and the people going up. The same language which is used in 1 Thessalonians 4:16, 17 is also used pertaining to Jericho. So, the lamb and the lion. This is the portion on the connection I see between the vision of that young Swedish boy, the constellation Cygnus, and the earthly representation of the Giza plateau, of the three pyramids, but especially the lion sphinx, as the representation of the gathering place in Genesis 49 9 to 11. So on April 29th, at exactly 7 a.m. Stockholm time, matching the Swedish boy's vision timestamp to the minute, the Lord again directs our attention to the Northern Cross constellation Cygnus, the opening of the door to heaven. Cygnus represents the blesser surely and swiftly returning as he comes down to judge in righteousness. And that is the combined meaning of the main stars in the constellation, as well as fill the earth with blessings and glory. The heavens call our attention to its brightest star, Deneb. That is the star which name means the judge, but the placement in the Northern Cross configuration denotes that this is the head of the Lord on the cross. So the star Deneb will be at meridian, the highest point in the sky, at exactly 7 a.m. in the morning, Stockholm time, which was specified in the vision of the Swedish boy. So the Neb, the brightest star in the Northern Cross, demarks the bowed down head of our Lord on the cross configuration, who is also, of course, the heavenly capstone missing from the bridal pyramid. The capstone in heaven, which the believers are submitted to. And in another representation in the scripture, it reads that the lively stones are fitly framed to that missing capstone in the spirit. The Neb's configuration shows the Lord's head leaning slightly toward his left hand. For us, it is the right star, but from the perspective of the Lord, it would be his left hand. And that represents the bridal Khufu pyramid on the Giza plateau. The bridal pyramid witnessed in stone, we find that reference in Isaiah 19 and Isaiah 35, was in turn aligned with Sirius. That is the hawk star, the bright morning star of Revelation 22, Jesus coming down as a hawk, snatching up his bride. Also with Orion's belt stars, the Hyades and the Pleiades in Taurus. And on the other hand, the pyramid points to Alpha Draconis. And it is as if the pyramid is both calling attention to the coming prince, coming for the gathered believers in Taurus. And on the other hand, we see the marking of the great dragon. And I believe that is another confirmation that the rapture will most likely be a revolving door event of us going up and Satan and his hordes being cast down. So as the Lord bows his head star Deneb, he leans in toward his bride. Deneb's placement as the head star vertically aligns with the central star in the cross, and that is the breast or chest of the Lord, which in turn represents Giza's central Khafre pyramid and most closely resembles the capped mountain right behind the Sphinx that the little boy drew, as we're going to see in the slideshow below. From the Giza Cygnus understanding, that alignment is accurate. I believe it is. And I also believe by faith that the Swedish voice vision communicates spirit truth to us. This exact 7 a.m. alignment of the head star Deneb, the central Khafre pyramid, and the Sphinx positioned at the foot of the cross appears to be the celestial mirror of Genesis 49:10 as well, of the Lord's end times harvesters being gathered unto Shiloh, the lion of the tribe of Judah, at the Giza plateau upon his return. Genesis 49, 9 and 10. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down and couched like as a lion, and as an old lion, who will rouse him up? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. So at this key time where we see a reference to the believers being gathered at Shiloh, I believe represented on the Giza plateau, we are looking toward an eclipse at the feet of the Lamb on April 29th. So as Mercury visits the Pleiades, the seven candlesticks in the Lord's hands, as a divine messenger, the forerunner and best man of the groom, no doubt stressing the need to ready ourselves spiritually for the Lord's coming. The separation between Mercury and the Sun, the solar bridegroom, reaches its highest point on that same day, April 29th. So this position is as far as he is going to proceed to reach the virgins gathered there as an evening star. Because from April 29th onward, the distance between the Sun and Mercury will decrease. Mercury will move backward toward the Sun to, at the point of conjunction, become a morning star. The Swan comet is also approaching Mercury steadily and crosses over the ecliptic into Taurus in the early morning of April 29th. Also, on April 29th, the hidden moon bride aligns with the delta star of Princess Andromeda at 12:12, which was the exact time frame. Remember that we did that decode of the wedding of William and Kate in 2010 on April 29th at 12:12, which they designed to take place on Earth in Westminster Abbey on the pavement that represents Pegasus. We see a similar alignment at the exact same time at 12:12 on April 29th, and the moon bride aligns with the door star, the open door in the Princess constellation. At that time, 12:12, the Northern Cross Cygnus is standing upright in the northwest, and Lyra, David's harp, and the sonic door touches the horizon. And at that moment, we see the head of the dragon coming down. And as a convergence of all preceding signs on April 30th, Mercury's forerunner message to the Lord's virgins in the Pleiades to ready themselves will be amplified by the trumpeting of Comet Swan. And that takes place in the afternoon of April 30th. The same day, the hidden moon enters the Aries throne room and reaches her astronomical new moon phase, the darkest phase of the moon in the month. And during the evening until after midnight, that's when we will witness a partial solar eclipse that is seen from the southernmost point of South America, the intersection with the what we call the Antarctic. Based on your perspective, that is either the Antarctic or the outer ice ring, while Jupiter and Venus blow the heavenly trumpet of the swan together because they will conjunct. So the convergence of celestial signs will be on April 29th and 30th, and building toward, I believe, to be a midnight cry on that day. So the heavenly choreography from April 24th to May 1st. So we see the constellation Cygnus, the Northern Cross, the origin as well as the destination of the comet Swan. And then on April 20th, the fire blowing dragon in Cetus. And then the trajectory of that comet Swan, traversing through Cetus the sea monster and then trumpeting toward the believers gathered in Taurus at the Pleiades, the seven churches. So it is both a representation of a ram's horn as well as of a silver trumpet. And this is the visitation of the moon between April 24th to 27th. First, it will conjunct with Saturn at the tail star of the constellation Capricorn, denoting the sacrifice is coming. Then with Mars, associated with war, and the Archangel Michael standing up. Then with Venus, the beloved, and then with Jupiter. And Venus and Jupiter are moving in and are about to conjunct. So on the 26th, we can see that the constellation Aries is the location where the sun is shining on the face of the Lamb. And comet Pan-STARRS will enter the constellation, and upon the Swan comet's entry, Mercury will depart into Taurus. The 27th, the moon, Jupiter, and Venus will gather at the head of the trodden down fish in Pisces. And this is one of the references of the elite toward their Invictus boom scenario that is time-stamped to be on April 27th. And I was reminded by that from a fellow Dutch viewer in the Netherlands, Esther. So Esther, thank you very much for reminding me. And then on April 29th at exactly 7 a.m. in the morning, Deneb, the head star in the constellation Cygnus, the Northern Cross, will be at meridian, marked by this green line. And this is the representation of the constellation Cygnus mirrored on the Giza plateau. This is the Khufu pyramid, the bridal pyramid missing its capstone. This is the Khafre pyramid. And you can see that the star Deneb is to the north of that pyramid, with the Sphinx in the south. And all the non-believing astronomers were wondering, why is that star a little bit tilted to the left from the perspective of the cross, because it seems out of line. And I was researching, what does that represent on the plateau? And it represents the tombs of the princesses, of the princes and princesses. So it's a royal tomb. And I was like, what am I looking at? And then I believe the Spirit helped me understand that that was actually the moment of the Lord bowing his head and tilting it toward the bride. So what I believe we're looking at when we look at the Northern Cross is not just the crucifixion, but the moment of him dying and the finishing of the work, the opening of the door to heaven. So here you can see how that star Deneb is a representation of the tombs on the Giza plateau. So again, but now a little bit bigger, the alignment in the early morning of the star Deneb being at meridian, the highest point in the heavens, exactly at 7 a.m. Swedish time. The same alignment, but then zooming in. And this is a reference to what the Swedish boy drew, how he drew that mountain in Egypt. And this is a drawing from a set of notes by Tim Foster. It's included in the article as well. But the visual representation of the comparison between the drawing and the Menkaure pyramid, the central pyramid, right behind the Sphinx, now a man with a lion's body, but it used to be a great lion. So to me, that similarity is very striking. And this is what you can see from a zoomed out perspective. At that moment, Cygnus is actually, the Northern Cross is firmly planted into the ground. A little bit to its left, our right, is Lyra, David's harp, touching the horizon. And this is the head of the dragon. So we see the finished work of the cross, David's harp, the triple door, and then the dragon coming down. And this is the moment on the same day when the moon is aligned with the Delta star in Andromeda. So this is the timestamp of the wedding at the time of William and Catherine. The moon, the hidden moon, aligns exactly with the door of the princess. And then the start of the partial solar eclipse. So on April 30th until the 1st of May. So the elite are celebrating their satanic high holidays from the evening of the 29th onwards. Then they have like Beltane, Walpurgisnacht, Samhain, and of course May Day. And we are going to be witnessing that partial solar eclipse. And in the constellations, that takes place at the feet of the Lamb. So the bride and the groom are conjuncting in the throne room at the feet of the Lamb. And Mercury is signaling to the Pleiades as well as Comet Swan. So this is the area where that solar eclipse will be visible from. And this is also the physical area where all the names of the variants of the quote-unquote coronavirus are marked out in place names, Delta, Omicron, the whole shebang. And then this beautiful culmination on April 30th of the partial solar eclipse in the Lamb, Mercury, and the Swan comet at the Pleiades. And then to complete this convergence, the planets Venus and Jupiter, the beloved and the king planet, the man-child in the Revelation 12 sign, and Venus, which was marked out by the Christ angle alignment 3 days prior, they're going to conjunct in Aries at the feet of the Lamb. And at the time of the Christ angle alignment, that was on September 20th, the Giza pyramid was pointing to the conjunction of Venus and Regulus on the one hand. On the other hand, the placement of Uranus in Pisces was stressed. But particularly the alignment of Venus with Regulus, the ruler or scepter star of the constellation Leo, the coming together of the beloved and the ruler, pointed to the gathering of believers unto Shiloh, the line of the tribe of Judah. And now we can see the earthly representation, I believe, of that sign, because the Giza plateau is a combination of the bridal believers represented in the Khufu pyramid, Shiloh represented in the Sphinx, and the vision of the Swedish boy helps us to pinpoint that as the gathering location in God's former dwelling prior to the Exodus. So I believe the Christ angle alignment pointed forward to the gathering time of believers. And that could be next week. And of course, the latter is just me anticipating and looking forward and giving you my data, my understanding. But of course, I invite you to do your own research and come to your own conclusions. So then at midnight, there was a cry made. The midnight marker is alluded to in Exodus 11:4 and 12:29, pertaining to the Passover in Moses' days when the sun was in Aries as it is now. It is also mentioned as the timestamp when Ruth lay down at Boaz's feet. That was the marking of them coming together at the time of the barley harvest, Ruth 3:8. And most notably, it's also mentioned in Matthew 25:6 as the time of the cry of the best man of the bridegroom, warning the virgins of the groom's near arrival, just like in the ancient Galilean wedding type, when the best man of the groom would precede the groom and call out to the waiting bride and her virgins that the groom was on his way. So she'd best get up quickly, trim her lamp, and go out to meet the groom halfway. She was actually called to um, enter into darkness by faith, go forward by faith, and then meet the groom halfway. This is what I believe Mercury represents on the ecliptic. Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. And 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish. They that were foolish took their lamps, and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. And while the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight there was a cry made, Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Then all those virgins arose, and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said unto the wise, Give us of your oil, for our lamps are gone out. But the wise answered, saying, Not so, lest there be not enough for us and you. But go ye rather to them that sell, and buy for yourselves. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut. So, the midnight marker, the convergence of all signs, April 30th, Mercury speaking to the Lord's virgins, amplified by the trumpeting of comet Swan. The same day, the moon enters into Aries, reaches the new moon phase, her darkest phase, where she's completely dissolved into the rays of the sun. Then we see a partial solar eclipse at the feet of the Lamb, and that starts just before midnight and lasts until after midnight, hence the midnight call. Below, we see the conjunction of Jupiter and Venus blowing the heavenly trumpet of the swan together in Pisces, representing the fish who were sent out to proclaim the gospel. Again, also tying back to John 21. And it is my understanding that we are now, as the disciples in the boat, we see the Lord, the bridegroom, shining, shewing himself forth from the shore. The sun is in the throne room. He is firmly established on the shore right now. We see the confirmation of that picture coming together of the sun in the throne room. The bride is still in the celestial sea area, and toward the end of the week, the moon will traverse over the ecliptic from the celestial sea. She will come unto dry land and eclipse with the sun. So that could be the culmination of John 21. And in this short video, you can see the trumpet call to the virgins, predominantly by Mercury, but then amplified by the swan comet this week. And this is a trailer of what I think a beautiful, like scenic movie about the book of Revelation, the apocalypse of John. And maybe it is just a beautiful reminder for us to ponder on the time that we will see our bridegroom for the first time.
Alpha and Omega, the first and the last, and he that lives. I was dead, but now I am alive forevermore, and have power over death and hell. Write the things I will show you. They are messages for all churches. Come, I will show you things which must be hereafter. I entered the door of heaven. There were 24 old men, dressed in white robes with golden crowns on their heads, and 4 living beings